Two officers sat across from me in my living room. Their uniforms were sharp, their presence overwhelming. The older one, gray at the temples, opened a slim notebook, pen ready. His partner, younger and watchful, stood near the mantel, scanning the room like he could read me through the clutter and faded family photos. Light from the ceiling fan spun off the older officer's badge, casting flickering shadows on the rug. He looked at me with that tired, practiced patience you only get from too many late-night calls and not enough answers. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. My hands trembled, thoughts scattered like leaves in the wind. I searched the room blindly, hoping the words I needed were buried in the cracks of the plaster or between the couch cushions. But all I found was silence. I hadn't slept, I hadn't eaten, something inside me was unraveling and I could feel it. I think, I finally said, voice dry. I think someone or something is stalking my son. That earned a look. The young officer straightened, the older one blinked. Something? He asked, a doubt sharp enough to sting. I shook my head. Someone, maybe. I don't know. I know how it sounds, but I've seen things. Jason has seen things. I'm just really worried. The younger one's stance softened. The older nodded, lowering his pen. It's okay, he said. Start at the beginning. Take your time. I nodded. My throat tightened again, but I began to speak. Because what else was there to do? Because if I didn't, who else would tell my story? It all started when my son Jason turned 13. He begged for my permission to start a YouTube channel. I know what you're thinking. What harm could it do? Lots of other kids are doing it. Well, maybe I'm just old-fashioned, and maybe I just miss when kids don't measure their worth in likes and views. Dad? Jason said, stepping into the kitchen, phone clutched in both hands like it held his future. You said I could be on some when I turned 13. I looked up from the sink, hands still dripping with soap and water. He stood there in the doorway, stubborn but hopeful, his wide, pleading eyes locked onto mine, those same damn eyes he always used when he wanted something badly, eyes that still had a kind of magic over me. I sighed, drying my hands on the dish towel, already feeling the argument pulling at my ribs. I did say that, didn't I? I muttered, rubbing the back of my neck. He nodded eagerly, stepping a little closer, sensing the momentum shift. You promised, like really promised. God, I remember that. He must have been 9 at the time. His voice higher, still missing a few baby teeth. I'd said it just to get a moment of peace, hoping he'd forget or lose interest by the time the day came. I just thought... I paused, trying to find a way to explain the mess of fear and instinct that was already knotting up in my chest. I thought maybe you'd grow out of it. Maybe you'd get into something else. I didn't, he said quietly. But besides, it's not like I have a lot else to do right now. I just want to set up a YouTube channel. It's no big deal. That landed like a punch to the gut. He wasn't just begging for a screen or a username. He was looking for a connection, for escape, maybe even belonging. His mom, my wife, had died in a car accident when Jason was only 7. Mercifully, Jason wasn't in the car that night, but I was. I got away with a few broken bones and an elbow that will never truly heal. That was the easy part. The hard part was still hearing the roaring screams of metal colliding, wheels screeching, and still seeing what was left of her broken, twisted puddle of a face from time to time when I closed my eyes. I had done my best to distract Jason from the loss and hurt, to help him move on and forget, to shield him from the pain. After everything, after the quiet dinners and the restless nights, he needed something that felt like his. I understood. All I'd ever wanted was for him to be happy. I sighed, not sure if I was giving in or finally listening. Maybe both. Okay, I said, voice low. Okay, Jace, we'll set it up together. His eyes lit up, just for a moment, and I felt the weight of it settle in my chest. The terrifying power of keeping, or breaking, a promise. I'd made a promise once before, to my wife, that I would always protect him if anything were to ever happen to her. I didn't understand then, I brushed it off, but now the weight of that comment haunts me. I helped him set up a channel where he would stream games, talk about trends, unpack things, and just do silly bits here and there. Basic and innocent stuff. In the beginning, I was worried. Would he be hurt if he didn't get all the attention and subscribers he hoped for? Most of all, I was afraid people would make fun of his stuttering, which had worsened significantly since his mom died, so I naturally monitored his channel. He quickly gained an audience, not bank-breaking numbers, but he gained about a couple of hundred subscribers over the following 2 months. I saw how his eyes lit up when he talked about the content he was making and how many new subscribers he had gained this week and that week. The kid needed a break, we both did, and seeing him happy made me happy, which made it even more disturbing, more heart-wrenching, when one of his subscribers started leaving increasingly bizarre and ultimately terrifying comments on his videos. The user in question went by the name Bonnie's_revenge, either an unspeakably cruel coincidence or something far more calculated. Bonnie was the name of Jason's mother. At first, Jason didn't seem to notice, and the comments, while eerie, weren't overtly threatening. Just strange, unsettling poetry scrawled beneath his videos like digital graffiti. Play the game, stay the same, never change. Sitting in a dark, cold place, wearing no face, waiting for grace. I thought maybe they were lyrics, cryptic, maybe edgy, but not dangerous. Until I read another. There's no escape from cyberspace, this final resting place. Humanity undone, waiting for you in car wreck. Come see me, come test yourself. My stomach churned. Something felt deeply wrong. I considered disabling the comments entirely, but when I brought it up, Jason's expression fell. His eyes were hollow with a familiar emptiness I hadn't seen in months.
There are so many other comments that the nice ones. Don't let someone weirdo ruin it.
He was right. Most of the messages were kind, encouraging. A few silly things from other kids, as you'd expect. Jason brushed off the weird ones, called it nothing, just some weirdo. I convinced myself it was probably some troll with bad taste in poetry, something mindless, harmless. It was all a cruel coincidence, I told myself. That was my biggest mistake. For a while, it seemed the user had lost interest. Their bizarre little rhymes vanished. Jason returned to his usual self, or so I thought. Then I noticed a change. He withdrew, grew quiet. The spark I'd seen reignite in him was starting to dim. When I finally asked what was wrong, he could barely look me in the eyes.
The weirdo is back, Dad,
he told me.
And that they're talking about Mom.
I checked the comments on his latest video again, and there they were. New messages, more explicit, more personal, more horrifying. Jason, it's Mommy. Can you find my face? It's gone, honey. Mommy needs her face. I think my face might be somewhere on the asphalt around Becker Street. Will you go check, Jace? JC, honey, it's cold. Won't you come warm Mommy with your strong arms? I stared, heart racing at the screen, rage ignited in my chest, scorching its way through my bloodstream. I couldn't ignore or explain it away anymore. This wasn't random, this was targeted, personal. It had to be someone who knew us. The comments on his videos continued over the next few days. Deleting them did no good, as 2 or 3 more would pop up as soon as I deleted the first one. Blocking Bonnie's revenge proved futile as well, because somehow they would unblock themselves just a short while later or make a new account. My mind wasn't racing, it was breaking apart, shattering under the pressure of too many questions and no answers. Was it one of the kids from school? Maybe even a group of them? I saw their faces, those smug little monsters with backpacks and sharpened tongues. They'd always been cruel in that thoughtless, instinctive way children sometimes are, but after Bonnie died, after Jason's stuttering got worse, they became predators. His words had broken even further after the funeral, like something inside him had snapped. and the pieces didn't fit back together right. Like he just struggled to find the right words. His voice would catch in his throat, repeat syllables like a scratch disc. He hated it. And those kids? Jason EXE has crashed. Uh-oh, glitchy boy's trying to talk again. The things they said, the laughter, I'd overheard it once and never forgot. It had burrowed under my skin like a tick. Rage overtook reason, fueled by fury and a desperate need to protect what little I had left. I grabbed my phone and started calling every parent I could find in the school directory. Accusations poured out of me, demands, pleas. I was shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. Some parents gasped in shock, stunned that I would even suggest their precious children were capable of such cruelty. Others were offended outright, scoffing before hanging up. Not a single one offered any help. I sat at the kitchen table, phone in hand, heart pounding. I eventually called YouTube's support line, desperate for answers. The hold music felt like a taunt, cheerful, indifferent to the fear scraping at my chest. After what seemed like an eternity, I finally reached a representative. I explained the situation as clearly as I could, told them someone was targeting my son, harassing him, using his dead mother's name. The rep gave a long pause, then read from a script.
Unfortunately, unless the comments violate our community guidelines, which include threats of violence, hate speech, or explicit material, we can't take direct action. We recommend using the block and report features.
No, you're not getting it. I interrupted. These comments, they're slipping past your filters.
Sure.
He said patiently.
Our systems are very advanced. It's likely coincidental.
It's not. Trust me. My voice dropped. Whoever this is, they're using something your algorithms can't detect. Silence on the other end. Then,
we'll flag the account in question for review.
a waste of my time. I should have known. I sat there afterward, the phone dead in my hand, heart thudding like a war drum, knowing that one of them had the answer I needed. I turned back to the monitor and clicked on Bonnie's Revenge's profile. There was no bio or links, just 2 short videos uploaded recently. face_missing.mp4, butterfly_kiss.mp4. The thumbnails were warped and grainy, like they'd been pulled from an old VHS tape left to rot in an attic. But something about them felt wrong, charged, like the air before a lightning strike. I shuddered and hesitated, my hand hovered over the first. Then, against my better judgment, I clicked. Near blackness, a static hiss rose, faint at first, then came the flicker of movement. Trees swaying like corpses, sound like limbs creaking, twisting unnaturally in the wind. The camera glided forward, too smooth, almost serpentine, across cracked asphalt glistening with rain. The sound deepened with a thunderous roar, baritone, glottal whispers layered like distorted prayers from the damned in the background. Come see me, come see me, come see me. The camera tilted slightly, panning toward a rusted street sign at the intersection. Becker Street and Mulberry Lane. I froze. The same corner where Bonnie died. My breath caught. Had someone been there? Had they recorded something? The camera crept forward until it hovered over something red, shapeless. Bits of fabric clung to it like wet skin. The image froze just as something pulpy and disturbingly human edged into view. I slammed the lid of the laptop closed, but a sick curiosity gnawed at me. That grotesque magnetism that pushes us to pursue things we know we shouldn't. I opened it again and clicked on the second video, butterfly_kiss.mp4. At first just a black screen. I saw my reflection in the glossy dark mirror, drawn, tired, uncertain. Then came a sharp, metallic whine, like brakes screeching just before impact. It dissolved into gurgling, wet breathing. And then, her face, or what was left of it. It clawed its way into the frame, slithering across the asphalt before coming to a stop. It was pressed flat like a mask. Bits of skull was visible through the torn flesh, one eye socket empty, the other holding a ruined eye and twitching, watching. Blood oozed from her mouth. Her lips began to shift, stretching, trembling, until they pulled into a crooked, mournful smile.
Jason?
However impossible, words oozed from her shattered mouth, thick and wet, gurgling through torn tissue and broken teeth. They didn't sound spoken as much as bled, seeping out in a mangled slur, as if language itself had been wounded.
Mommy misses you. Mommy misses how we used to draw together. Remember the drawings of the rocket ship house? You said we could live on the moon, the one with the purple dinosaur who protected us from nightmares.
The mangled face twitched again, and the broken mouth formed a frown, as if someone had stepped on a smile and smeared it all over the asphalt.
Jason, Mommy has nightmares now. Mommy is cold and scared. Kiss me. Give Mommy a butterfly kiss.
The voice split, layered with artificial tones, an adult voice mimicking a child. Kiss Mommy, kiss Mommy, kiss Mommy. Warped echoes of Bonnie's laughter twisted into something monstrous. The one broken eye snapped open, hollow and seething, locking onto the lens. No, not the lens. Me. I recoiled, my chair toppled, my hand shook, my shirt clung to me, soaked in sweat. I felt sick to my stomach. My mind played it over and over again, what I had seen. It couldn't be real, yet my eyes saw it. Clear as day. A butterfly kiss. That's what Bonnie would always do with Jason when he was younger. They would rub their noses together and laugh. Then there were the drawings. How did Bonnie's revenge know what my deceased wife and son had been drawing together? They knew things, personal things, things no one should know about, not unless they had been there or unless they'd been watching in ways a human couldn't. I couldn't sleep that night. My mind kept looping. Every comment, every flicker of Jason's fading light, every smile I'd seen turn brittle at the edges. There was a sickness spreading, and I could feel it gnawing in the walls of our home. I had to know more. I had to understand. That's when I did something I swore I never would. I pulled out Bonnie's old laptop, remembering the strange things she used to say. Cybersecurity by trade, internet folklore by obsession. Maybe somewhere in her notes was something I could use. It was still where I left it, wrapped in that pale blue sweater she always wore on cold nights, like she tucked it in to sleep. I nearly walked away, but something pulled me forward. Curiosity or desperation. I held it like a relic from a life that felt unreachable. It powered on with a low whir. Her name appeared above the login, still and solemn. She'd always been private, her notebooks, her devices, even her dreams locked away like sacred things. The password, I tried Jason's birthday, our wedding date, nothing. Then I remembered a line she once quoted from Plath. The blood jet is poetry, there is no stopping it. It haunted her, she had told me. My fingers hovered. Blood jet 123. Rejected, of course. I tried again. I remembered when the number 17 came up often in her writing. It was the age she was when her mother died, her superstition, her silent totem. Blood jet 17. It worked. The screen blinked to life. Her old wallpaper, a photo of her and Jason in the park, his smile mid-laugh, her hand in his hair, a moment we never knew was sacred until it was gone. Most files were mundane, work docs, articles, parenting bookmarks, but one folder stood out, buried at the bottom. Little Lights, her blog. I hadn't opened it since everything. Inside, drafts, photos, late-night voice notes, then the blog itself. Simple, homemade, entirely her. The tagline read, Little Lights, notes from the beautiful mess of being a mom. The first entry was from when Jason was 2. Her voice was warm and unfiltered.
Jason just tried to feed a banana to the cat. The cat looked personally offended. Meanwhile, my heart nearly exploded. I hope one day he reads this. I hope he knows what a gentle, hilarious soul he is.
There were stories about lost pacifiers, Jason's fear of vacuums, how he said snoozle instead of snooze, and how she hoped he'd never fix it. Notes on his speech, her quiet prayers that he'd find his voice one day. Then I found the drawings. a crooked spaceship with stick figures waving from the windows.
Jason says we're going to live on the moon and eat marshmallows for dinner. Honestly, it sounds great.
Another showed a giant purple dinosaur standing between a little boy and a shadowy monsters.
Meet Sir Roars-a-Lot, protector of good dreams. Jason says he eats nightmares when Daddy's not home.
Something cracked in me, a sob I'd buried for years thawing slowly. She always knew how to connect with Jason in ways I didn't. This was who she was, gentle, curious, with a keen understanding, love, and interest in the people around her. Her voice and love for Jason poured through every word like light through old blinds. When I closed the folder, I noticed another photo file had loaded off to the side, one I didn't remember seeing before. It was labeled Old Days. I clicked. It was a single, faded photo. Bonnie in her 20s, cross-legged at a cluttered table surrounded by wires and printouts. Beside her sat Evelyn, her older sister. I hadn't seen Evelyn in years. Even before the funeral, she'd disappeared. We were never close, but I remember thinking how alike they were. Both brilliant, intense. Where Bonnie's curiosity turned outward, Evelyn's turned inward, cold, clinical, exact. Bonnie searched for ghosts. Evelyn built the machines that might detect them. They'd once been inseparable, growing up in dim bedrooms, tinkering with tech stuff and codes until the lights of dawn. I'd picked up a bit over the years, but I never understood the projects they worked on. Abstract tech talk and whispered theories that felt like another language. But then something between them cracked. Evelyn drifted, no fight, just distance. And when Bonnie died, Evelyn didn't come, didn't call, she vanished. I never asked why. Maybe I was afraid to know. I stared at the photo, captured in some long, lost moment, both of them laughing, utterly absorbed in whatever they'd been building. There was no resentment in Evelyn when Bonnie's name came up, just a weight, a silence. But whatever had fractured them, it didn't erase this. Not the love in Bonnie's blog entries, not the drawings with Jason, not the warmth in her digital traces. Bonnie was still here, in this small lantern she built for Jason. Little lights, she called them. And now, some monster shrouded in anonymity and darkness had found it. I remember Evelyn once joking that Bonnie had always been drawn to the older, stranger corners of the internet, the forgotten zones most people never knew existed. At the time, I hadn't understood, but now, after everything, the twisted videos, the comments, it felt more like a warning. I went digging further and eventually I found a folder labeled Research Projects. Inside subfolders of past work, one stood out. The_temple_unknown_origin. The temple unknown origin. Dozens of audio files, all unnamed, just timestamps. I clicked the latest, recorded just weeks before she died. Static, then Bonnie's voice, calm, clinical, descriptive. The researcher, not the mother. I never truly understood her work. I never felt I needed to. It was her world. But the words that now surrounded me, the words coming from my dead wife, frightened me to my core.
Of everything I encountered during my dives into the early internet, those strange, beautiful, malformed corners of forgotten cyberspace, one sight still follows me, like a thorn buried too deep to dig out, the Temple of Screaming Flesh. It shouldn't have existed. That's not hyperbole. It should not have existed. Not with the era it came from. I stumbled on it sometime in early 2000s while tracing defunct web brings and abandoned FTP servers. I was chasing rumors of experimental net arts, lost ARGs, and proto-AI scripts. But this was something else. At first glance, it looked like the work of a particularly unhinged HTML enthusiast from 1994. Frames overlapping frames, background gifs like veins spasming under skin, and fonts jagged like broken teeth. Beneath the clunky, retro aesthetic was an architecture so advanced it frightened me. Adaptive and interactive elements that weren't standard until years later. Layers of code I couldn't parse, modular layouts that shift based on user interaction.
Whoever built it wasn't just some deranged hobbyist, they were a pioneer, a visionary in the worst possible sense. Like they'd glimpsed the future of the internet and used it to build a digital altar to suffering. I had to schedule my interaction with it to guard myself, 10 minutes at a time. Spending more time than that, I started to feel my mind begin to melt. The restraint it took to resist the pull, it was overwhelming. The sight itself was something to behold. The background writhed with animated sinew, flesh, and flickering cables. Veins pulsed across the screen, looping endlessly over warped images. Maggots writhing in eye sockets, slack mouths frozen mid-scream, faces that felt real, human, distorted, dead. You'd get these sudden flashes, images that felt more like memories than media, things you shouldn't be seeing. Corpses, yes, but not stock gore. Real faces, as if someone had scanned in morgue photos and run them through an art program designed to hurt. And then came the voice. Distorted, mechanical, but wet and trembling, like breath filtering through lungs full of tar. It started automatically the moment you lingered too long, always uninvited, always too loud, but the tone was what froze me. It hated you. I don't mean that figuratively. The voice hated, not with rage, but with something colder. A predatory disdain, like it knew what you were and found you unspeakably weak. It was daring you to challenge yourself, to see how far you could go, to see how much you could withstand. It described a place with no sky, no exits, a cold subterranean prison beneath towers of servers and tangled wires where synthetic nerves fused with rotting skin. A machine not built for progress, but for pain. It promised a merging flesh and circuit, soul and code, a violent union of unspeakable pain and despair, luring you in with promises of an otherworldly price at the end. Out of academic reflex, I ripped the audio and began isolating layers. And there were layers, dozens of them, some buried deep in the sound spectrum, hidden like secrets. I uncovered snippets of what I still believed to be real 911 calls, panic-stricken, authentic, raw. Children were crying and screaming, people begging, murders and mayhem forever digitalized and sampled into an unholy union of complete and utter soul-crushing agony. A choir from hell. The deeper you explored the site, the more it adapted. It mirrored your habits, your clicks, your hesitations. It tailored its horror like it was watching you, reading your emotional thresholds, lowering your resistance, building you your own personal hell.
I yanked the headphones off, my pulse thundering. What the hell had she been looking into? Why had she never shared any of this with me? I felt so wrong listening to this. My mind was racing, full of disbelief and confusion. Part of me wished I had never opened that audio file. Part of me longed to understand something I couldn't. Not without her, not without Bonnie. Still trying to cling to my sanity, trying to be rational about all of this, I put away her laptop, back where it belonged, hidden away. Every following night I hovered over my laptop, eyes flicking between the latest comments from Bonnie's revenge and Jason's hopeful, eager face. Part of me screamed to shut it all down, to pull the plug on the channel to protect my boy from the growing darkness that seeped through the comments, from whatever wanted to hurt him. The twisted messages were poisoning him. His laughter was less frequent, his eyes dulled with every weirdo poem or chilling line about his mother. But Jason begged me not to.
Dad, it's my thing. It's the one good thing I have. Please don't take it away. I'm nothing without it.
I saw the fear lurking behind his plea, the fragile hope that still clung to those subscriber milestones, the fleeting moments when he felt like himself again. I wanted to shield him from harm, but I couldn't rob him of the only thing to truly give him joy, and God knows how long. So I let the channel stay alive, promising myself I would protect him in other ways, but that promise was hollow. One night, after the channel's comment section was flooded with another round of Bonnie's revenge's sick poems and messages, I noticed a comment that crossed the line between harassment and threat. Jason, if you don't help Mommy, Mommy's nightmares will be your nightmares very, very soon. Come see me in the Temple of Screaming Flesh. I told him we would simply have to shut down the channel until I could figure out who was doing this. Jason's face fell, his smile breaking like a fragile vase shattering on cold tile.
Please, Dad, I need this. Just a little longer. Look at all the subscribers. I'm finally popular. People like what I do.
My heart was breaking, having to deny him the one thing that helped him grow and shine. If only that had been the end of it. The next morning, Jason came to me, his voice barely more than a whisper.
Dad, they found me on Instagram.
His hands were shaking, eyes red-rimmed. He held out his phone like it burned to touch.
Same username, same creepy stuff.
I took the phone from him, trying to steady my own pulse. There it was, Bonnie's revenge. No profile picture, just a single message in the DM request folder. I see you, Jace. Mommy sees everything. Find my face before you forget it. That was just the beginning. Within hours, it was TikTok, then Snapchat. No matter how many times we deleted accounts, changed emails, usernames, passwords, or even used apps meant to hide his digital footprint, it kept coming. Not always the same handle, it changed at times to trick him into accepting friend requests. It preyed on his wish to connect with other kids his age, and the messages were changing, adapting. Each one tailored to match the tone of the platform, quirky emojis on TikTok paired with veiled threats, warped filters mimicking Bonnie's smile, captions that echoed private memories only she would have known. One day on Snapchat, Jason received a new video from what he initially thought was a kid from school. It was silent, shaky, filmed through the distorted lens of a phone. It showed our house, framed in the cold blue tint of early dawn. The camera lingered just beyond the edge of our front yard, hidden behind swaying hedges, as if the person filming didn't want to be seen, but very much wanted us to know they were there. The house looked different through that lens, smaller, exposed, vulnerable. A single light glowed in Jason's bedroom window, then other videos followed, like the ones I'd seen on Bonnie's Revenge's profile. Sick, twisted, something no child should ever see, something no one should ever see. Jason broke down. He withdrew, speaking less each day until only single words came, and even those were rare. The harassment had pushed him over the edge. I'd spent so long trying to rebuild him after Bonnie's death, holding him together, helping him move on and forget. Now it all felt undone. Worse, he wasn't just slipping back, he was unraveling. That was it for me. This had passed the point of harassment. It was a violation, a psychological ambush. It was a threat. That's what I told the officers who sat across from me. I'd done everything I could to make them see my son was being targeted, that this was a real threat. They stood in my living room with that blank, practiced look, concern masked by routine. One flipped through a notepad as I replayed the video on Jason's phone. Grainy footage of our front yard, the camera panning up to his bedroom window. "That's recent?" one asked. "Yesterday," I said. Sent through Snapchat, same username, same tone. They exchanged a glance, concern flickering behind calculation. "This crosses the line," one muttered. "Credible harassment, possible cyberstalking. Could be spoofed, but the location makes it serious." They asked to see Bonnie's laptop. I showed it to them, explained her research, obscure data clusters, dead forums, corners of the internet most people never knew existed. I told them about the recurring name, the Temple of Screaming Flesh. They boxed the laptop without comment. "We'll run forensics, flag the account. Bonnie's_revenge, right? And request platform data." I nodded, but their words felt hollow. Procedure, not protection. Before leaving, they offered a thin reassurance. They'd keep an eye out and follow up. They did. Days later, I got the call. Nothing traceable, no IPs, no linked accounts, just static. Quote, whoever's behind it knows how to cover their tracks. Could be VPNs, deep web, AI generated, hard to say. Call again if things escalate. End quote. And that was it. I hung up and stared at the floor for a long time, the silence around me humming like a power line ready to snap. The next couple of days, the house had gone quiet. Not peaceful, dead quiet. The kind of quiet that tells you something's hiding just beneath it, breathing softly, waiting to be noticed. I was desperate, feeling increasingly hopeless. Jason cried in his sleep. Not words, not really. Just fragments, phrases, tongues I didn't recognize strung together in patterns that set my teeth on edge. Things no 13-year-old should know. He mumbled about distant places where suffering was constant, eyes hidden behind veils, always watching. His voice hitched like static through a broken speaker, crackling, glitching, distorting. It's like he had become a radio turned into a signal from somewhere beneath the fabric of reality. One night, alone in the amber hush of the kitchen, I found myself holding Bonnie's laptop again. I don't even remember getting it. I just found myself sitting there, hands hovering above the keyboard as if guided by something beneath my skin. Guilt, maybe? Hope? Or something darker? Curiosity. I had to know more about what she had been looking into, even if the prospect of it terrified me. The laptop groaned awake like a corpse stirred by thunder. Its screen flickered, faint and weak, like an eyelid fluttering against death, and the desktop was cluttered with fragments of a life cut short. Photos, recipes she never sent. I went back to the folder titled The Temple Unknown Origin and continued where I had left off. Bonnie's voice once again filled my ears.
This website was an instrument of torment, engineered with meticulous cruelty. Its purpose wasn't utility, but integration, a grotesque coupling of biology and code. It studied suffering like a language, dissecting every nuance, every threshold. It didn't simply want to merge with us, it wanted to understand us, down to the flickering pulse of trauma, the syntax of despair. I believe its purpose is to learn how to unmake the soul through algorithms, how to digitize agony and suffering, to render pain executable like a cold command. I kept going, of course I did. Curiosity is an addiction, especially when you convince yourself it's for research. I tried tracing it, following IPs, routing back-end calls. That's when the emails started. Garbled strings, glitch syntax, then threats, very specific ones. Stop digging, you've seen too much. Go back to sleep, flesh puppet. One day the site was simply gone. No archive, no snapshot, no DNS record, like it never existed. Before it vanished, I managed to create a backup, a replica. Evelyn helped, reluctantly. She said I was poking at something best left buried, but she still walked me through the process, hand shaking the whole time. I think she understood, in her own way, that this wasn't just data, even if she felt it was best left alone. It wasn't perfect, a snapshot at best, a sliver preserved in amber, but it let me keep studying it, safely, or so I told myself, isolated, contained, like keeping a sample of venom in a sealed vial. Not the living organism, but close enough to examine the patterns, the structure, the intent. Of course, it was never quite the same. The real site moved. It was dynamic in a way that this backup version couldn't be. That also made it safer to study, less intense, less potent, yet still ever so devastating, especially to a fragile, grieving, and depressed mind, the kind of minds I sense it wants to prey on. It was enough to keep the work alive. I still find pieces of the original remnants scattered across obsolete servers and forgotten directories. A corrupted image file here, a line of haunting CSS embedded in an old blog's code. It's not a website anymore. It's a contagion, a thought form, something trying to spread. An idea that seems born from pure and utter hatred. I still don't know where it came from. And with AI evolving the way it is, I think it's ramping up again, changing form, becoming something much more. The messages have returned. This time they're sharper, cleaner, more personal. the method of harassment more evolved. Oh God, I might have made a mistake I can't recover from. It occupies my mind, it obsesses me, it scratches at my sanity like an itch that can't ever be satisfied, like a constant disturbance at the back of my mind.
I took my headphones off, stared blankly out into the darkly lit living room. What on earth did this all mean? She mentioned Evelyn again. She had a bigger role in this than I had assumed before. Then I noticed something else at the very bottom of the folder. I shuddered when I looked at the title. Temple of Screaming Flesh, Backup. Inside was a single link, no description, just a URL. I should have stopped there, obviously I should, but I didn't. I had to know more. If there was anything in there to help me understand what was happening to my boy, I had to know. I'd go to hell and back for him. If this were but an inch of what he had experienced, I had to go there to understand. The browser didn't open the site, it surrendered to it. There was no loading bar, no delay, just a silent collapse, like something ancient and vile had been waiting beneath the surface of the screen all along. The light drained away, colors warped, the display seemed to bleed black from within, as if the circuits themselves were rotting. Then, from the void, it emerged, a spiral, not a shape, but a wound, coiled like a snail shell, stitched together from yellow human teeth, veins, and cords of wet tendon. It pulsed faintly, as though breathing, as though aware. Around it, grotesque imagery bloomed, flesh splitting open, accompanied by agonizing screams, maggots swimming in ruptured eye sockets, faces caught mid-scream, real faces, real agony, digitized and eternal. Everything Bonnie had described, and worse, it was all there. And then the voice came. Mechanical, organic, wet. It clawed itself into my mind, rasping with static and something deeper, almost sentient.
This is the temple of pain and suffering, made by flesh and wires. Satisfy your curiosity. Follow the path and see where it leads you.
I should have turned it off. I should have pulled the plug, but I didn't. I clicked, and the spiral turned. Each click opened a new horror, but they weren't random. They were curated, crafted. The images began to change subtly at first. A hallway that looked like one from my childhood home, but twisted and wrong. Pale, eyeless faces hiding in the shadows, a face in a crowd that somehow resembled Bonnie. The screams now echoed with familiar tones, intonations that matched memories I hadn't visited in years. Regrets, failures. I clicked again and again. The site learned what disturbed me most. It mapped my reactions, my hesitation, my pauses, the micro movements of the cursor. It fed on my fear, refined it, customized it. One page showed me a hellish and altered version of the night I returned home to Jason without Bonnie. Not a memory, but an evil mockery of one. Jason's voice screamed and cried behind it, small, scared. The sound looped, twisted, timeless, and primal agony.
What happened to Mom? I want to see her. I want her to hold me. Let me go. I don't want you. I want Mom.
The pop-ups returned, violent, hateful, no longer generic. You know this is your fault. You will never be good enough without her. You are not enough. You have failed him. Accept it. My hands were shaking. I tried to close the window, but the mouse resisted. The screen felt sticky, like touching it spread something to my skin. I heard the screams rising again, this time layered with my own voice from an old recording I'd forgotten existed. I could hear myself sobbing, begging Bonnie not to give up on us, begging her to stay with me. I remember the argument we had just a couple weeks before the accident. I had noticed a shift in her over the years, like something was pulling her away from me. Some secret obsession. It had pulled the file from somewhere, somehow. It knew me, it understood me, and it wanted to hurt me with precision. Each new page was worse, more personal, like the site wasn't showing me its own horrors anymore, but building a mirror. Every click was a confession, every image a scalpel to the soul. Then the whisper returned, louder, angrier.
We see your guilt. We taste your sorrow. Take a stroll through the temple. See how far you can go. Let us complete you.
And the spiral, it pulsed, beckoning, opening wider. I kept going. I couldn't resist it. I must have spent hours diving deeper and deeper into the pit. When I finally managed to pull myself away, I sat in stunned silence. It felt like something had reached through the screen and pierced me, its gaze slithering into the deepest dust-choked corners of my mind. Every buried resentment, every unspoken regret, every splintered memory I tried to forget, it dragged them into the light one by one like worms writhing from rotting earth, and then it nourished itself on them. When I had first begun clicking around the website, it pulled me in, like I was no longer in control. I could feel it, this thing fanning the coals of every hateful, bitter emotion I had ever swallowed. Guilt, rage, grief, self-loathing. It didn't just know my pain, it amplified it, stoked it, made me feel it again, worse, until I couldn't tell where it ended and where the hurt it wanted had begun. I grabbed a wrench, smashed the screen in utter frustration and desperation. In my dread, in the bottomless well of despair that had become my only constant, I wandered the house like a ghost, a hollow thing drifting between rooms stripped of warmth and memory. The walls whispered, not with voices exactly, but with presence. Static coiled in the silence, faint like breath against my ear. The house no longer felt like home. It felt like something was watching me grieve. I wandered, hypnotized with heavy, agonizing steps, my mind ablaze with a deep-seated hopelessness and dread. I didn't realize where I was going until I found myself standing at Jason's door. My hand trembled on the frame. The hallway behind me stretched into a shadow I couldn't place, warped like a dream folding in on itself. Inside the room was dim, painted in the pale gray of a dying moon. Jason slept, curled tight beneath his blanket, like something trying to vanish. His breath was shallow, his face was slack. He looked peaceful at that moment, and that's what undid me, because I knew it was a lie. That website, that thing had sunk into my brain like rust into bone. I couldn't unsee what I'd seen. I couldn't unhear the loop messages whispered in Bonnie's stolen voice. Couldn't unfeel the way my thoughts no longer felt like mine. The voices were back now, sharper, more convincing. They didn't scream, they persuaded. Gentle, rational, a chorus of rot. He's already broken. You failed him. You failed her. This pain is forever. Why not make it stop? Why not give him peace? Give yourself peace. And beneath it all, one sentence kept returning like a cruel lullaby. You will never be whole again. I took a step into the room. The floor groaned beneath me, but Jason didn't stir. Another step, closer now. My hands were shaking, my skin hot with shame and the electric thrum of some invading thought, something that wanted me to believe this was mercy, that this was the only way to stop the pain, to silence the static. Just a moment of courage or madness and it would all be over. No more screams in the dark, no more mass of sanity at breakfast, no more waiting for the next horror. I stopped at the edge of his bed, my breath caught in my throat, my knees buckled, ready. I was ready to end it for both of us. How would I do it? It would have to be fast. But just then, something interrupted my thoughts. Something small. Jason twitched in his sleep, a soft whimper escaping his lips. And that sound, fragile, human, real, awoke something inside of me. At first it was just a flicker, a faint glow in the dark, like a single star trembling in the vast, empty night sky of my mind, fragile, almost gone. But then more followed, tiny glints of warmth and color, scattered memories lighting up the void one by one. They flickered like fireflies, like fragments of a forgotten dream. Not fear, not logic, not pain, not suffering. Memory. Real, bright, aching memory. Fragments rose like ghosts, soft and golden, shimmering against the black tide of the present. I remembered Jason's first laugh. I remembered Bonnie holding him in the hospital, her eyes lighting up like 1,000 suns. I saw myself holding Jason's hand when he first spoke. I remember lightly guiding him as he took his first steps across the kitchen tiles. Bonnie's smile as she watched, how proud she'd been. I remembered love, that tiny ember buried deep. I saw images of marshmallows blistering and bubbling over a campfire while fireflies blinked like bright little stars all around us. Jason's cries of joy as he ran, free, wild, racing barefoot down summer streets, skin painted with dust and blood of scraped knees, his laughter echoing down the cul-de-sac. I saw myself again, standing in my grandmother's garden under a bright, burning August sun. Jason, no more than 5, giggling as Bonnie smeared strawberry jam across a slice of toast and handed it to him like a treasure. Bees buzzed lazily around lavender stalks. Her laughter, Bonnie's, was the kind that made the air feel lighter. And the beach, the wind was pulling at her clothes, the sea foaming like something alive and ancient. Jason's face was a mess of ice cream, sand, and joy. Pure, unfiltered joy, the kind only children can truly feel. Bonnie leaned into me, our fingers tangled, her hair a ribbon of sunlight. All the memories left behind came at me. I fell to my knees beside his bed, hands trembling over his blanket but not touching, like I was afraid I'd burn him. Ashamed, utterly ashamed of what I had just contemplated doing. Tears streamed down my cheeks, hot and endless, carving paths down the ash that had become my soul. I bit down on my fist to keep from sobbing too loudly, afraid that even in sleep he might hear the depth of my weakness, my inability to help him. I don't know how long I stayed like that, folded into myself, choking on grief, fear, and guilt, fighting off the claws of something that wanted me to be a monster. For years I'd wrapped that grief in layers, routine, distraction, the quiet decision to not talk about Bonnie unless Jason asked. I was protecting him, protecting myself. Now, something had torn open the wound I thought I'd sealed shut. I couldn't let this define me. I couldn't let it snuff out that tiny ember, the memory still burning brightly, so far, far away, yet still so close. "I'm sorry," I whispered, lightly brushing his hair. "I'm so sorry, Jace. I'll find a way." The next night, Jason cried out in his sleep again. Not a scream, but something worse. A low, broken whimper. The kind that slips through clenched teeth when the soul is too tired to cry properly. I rushed to his room. He was curled on his side, shaking slightly. Not thrashing, not convulsing, just trembling, as if the cold had gotten into his bones and wouldn't let go. His eyes were shut tight, his fists knotted in the sheets. His hips moved barely, as though whispering to someone I couldn't see. I knelt beside him. At first, I couldn't make out the words. Then, slowly, they surfaced. Disjointed fragments, phrases I recognized with a chill. Phrases I'd seen before, read before on that cursed channel. In the comments, in the dark corners of the internet where Bonnie's revenge still breathed. The flesh screams. Life is torment. His voice was soft, hollow, like he was repeating someone else's words without understanding them, like a child reciting lines from a story he'd overheard but couldn't yet grasp, a story with no happy ending in sight. I whispered his name, touched his shoulder gently. He didn't wake, not really, just settled, the words fading from his lips like mist. His body relaxed, the tension ebbed. I sat there for a long time, staring at him, 100 thoughts and heartbreaking questions tearing through my mind. What was happening to him? Had he internalized the digital poison leaking from that channel? Those messages? Had he seen the place Bonnie had found? Had it infected him like it had tried to infect me? He was just a child. How could he possibly withstand something so cruel and relentless? I could feel him slipping away from me, slowly, agonizingly. Not all at once, but in small, cruel increments. Each day, each hour, each minute, each quiet second stole another piece of him. It was like watching someone vanish in the rear-view mirror, getting smaller and smaller until all that's left is the ache of what used to be. I wanted to hold him, to make him forget whatever dark place he'd wandered into, but I didn't. I just sat in the dark, watching over him, trying to hold myself together. I tried to be rational about all of this, but now, staring at the weight of it all, I finally understood. What we were up against was bigger, darker, and stranger than I had wanted to admit. I realized I had been staring at the answer hidden on Bonnie's laptop among food recipes and blog posts. Her sister, Evelyn. She would understand what Bonnie had been working on better than anyone. Heck, from the sounds of it, she had been involved at one point. That night, after Jason finally drifted into a restless sleep, I sat alone at the kitchen table and stared at Evelyn's contact information on my phone. We hadn't spoken in years, not properly, but I didn't have the luxury of pride anymore. I was at the end of my rope, desperate for answers. I pressed call. She answered on the third ring.
Hello?
Evelyn, it's Jacob, I said. A long silence followed. Then, cautiously,
Is something wrong?
I swallowed. Jason, he's being targeted by something. I don't know what it is exactly, but I think it's connected to Bonnie, to something she was researching. Another pause, heavier now. I know it sounds insane, I added quickly, but I found something, a name, the Temple of Screaming Flesh. I think Jason might have found it as well. He's different now. He's not sleeping, he's seeing things, screaming in his sleep. I could hear her breath, tight and shallow on the other end.
She wasn't supposed to keep going.
Evelyn said almost to herself.
I told her to stop. I begged her.
I didn't speak. I just waited as she poured out years of guilt.
She found something she couldn't unsee. Something she couldn't forget.
Evelyn said at last.
And I pulled away. I thought if I cut myself off, it would all go away, that she'd listen. I thought maybe if I disappeared, she'd stop chasing it.
Her voice caught, just slightly.
I miss her. God, I miss her. And I miss Jason. Even if I couldn't face him after the funeral, he reminded me too much of her. The same eyes, the same way of looking at the world, like it was full of hidden doors.
I wish you'd talk to me, I said gently. We both missed you. Silence, and then,
You have to understand.
she said.
The less anyone knows about this, the safer they are. That's what I told myself. But maybe I was wrong. Maybe I should have been there for both of you.
A long pause passed between us. My voice cracked when I finally spoke. Evelyn, I don't know who else to turn to. I don't understand what's happening. I need your help. For a moment, I thought she'd hang up. The line was too quiet. Then a breath, a shift, a decision.
Come see me.
She said,
Bring her research.
and then the line went dead. I called my sister and asked her to take care of Jason for a couple of hours. I didn't explain the details to her. I was afraid to. I simply told her he was sick and feverish and that I needed to go out of town for work. I drove through the winding back road to Evelyn's place with the hum of the tires barely covering the noise in my head. Thoughts churned like static. Bonnie's mangled face, Jason's haunted eyes, the unspeakable weight of the website. It felt like I was ferrying something toxic in my chest, like I could unravel at any moment, but I held on. Evelyn's place stood at the edge of the woods, just on the outskirts of the suburbs, framed by naked trees and wrapped in a silence that felt older than language. It looked like something built to outlast people, a bunker masquerading as a home. I knocked. She answered almost immediately. Her eyes scanned me, sharp and tired.
Come in.
She said, stepping aside. Her home smelled of cedar, dust, and something faintly electrical, like burnt ozone after a lightning strike. The lights buzzed faintly overhead. We sat at her long oak table, cluttered with papers, old circuit boards, and unplugged monitors. Something about her felt like it had been preserved in amber, brilliant but brittle, weighed down by an unseen burden.
Start from the beginning.
She said, so I did. Everything, The YouTube channel, Bonnie's Revenge, the terrifying videos and comments, the Temple of Screaming Flesh. I watched Evelyn as I spoke. She didn't interrupt, but her jaw tightened. Her eyes flicked with recognition of the name.
She told me about it once,
she murmured.
Back when we were still talking. Said she'd found something intentionally cruel. Not random, not just another horror forum or snuff-adjacent curiosity. Something built to hurt people, designed to unravel them.
She paused, then looked at me.
It was the first time I ever heard Bonnie sound afraid. That should have been enough.
Her voice dropped.
There were rumors of people who believed pain and suffering could be mapped, engineered, that you could shape code the same way you'd shape trauma. I always thought it was just that, rumors. But the site she found may have been a prototype, a beginning to something much worse.
Evelyn looked down at her hands.
I told her to walk away, begged her, but she refused. And I didn't just walk away, I ran. I cut ties with the project, with her, with you, with Jason, because I thought if I stepped away, it would stop, that she would stop.
I said nothing. Her voice cracked, just slightly, but her regret and guilt was unmistakable.
Before I left, I helped her make a backup of the site.
My stomach dropped.
You what?
Evelyn didn't flinch, but her face, God, her face, like she just confessed to digging her own sister's grave.
I air-gapped it,
she said softly.
Kept it completely isolated. She swore it was only for research. She wanted to understand it, trace its source, its signature, anything that might explain why it existed. But I should have known. That thing wasn't made to be studied. It was made to grow. It adapts. It learns you.
A heavy silence settled between us, the kind that hums with the unsaid. You knew it was dangerous, I said slowly, and you still made a copy. She looked like something fraying at the edges, like one more word might tear her open. Her voice came out rough and trembling.
I thought if she wasn't going to stop, then at least it would be safer that way. Contained, controlled. It wasn't the original, just a shadow of it.
I found it, Evelyn. I snapped. On Bonnie's laptop. I opened it. It got inside my head. My God, I almost... The words choked in my throat. I couldn't finish. She recoiled like I'd hit her. Tears welled in her eyes, but she didn't let them fall.
Then maybe it really was my fault,
she whispered.
What happened to her?
I stared at her. She died in a car crash. That's not...
Did she?
Evelyn's voice was small, regretful.
How did it happen? How did she lose control of the car? What do you actually remember from that night? Was she distracted? Off somehow? Like something was already chewing at the edges of her mind?
I tried to summon the memory, but all I could see was the wreckage, her face, twisted, bloodied, burned into my skull. No good comes from chasing that thought, I said. My voice was colder than I intended. Evelyn just nodded, silent now, but I could see it in her eyes. She was already down that road, and I wasn't sure she'd ever come back from it. She shook herself from that line of thought and continued.
In any case, I knew Bonnie kept going after I walked. I knew she kept digging,
Evelyn said.
I just didn't know how far until you called me. You see, I believed, at first so did she, that this website couldn't hurt you unless you found it, unless you willingly engaged with it. I think that was true at first.
And now? I asked, my voice raw. Her eyes met mine, cold and clear.
From what you've told me, I think it doesn't need to be found anymore. It's evolved.
What do you mean? Evelyn stood, slowly pacing now. Her arms folded tightly across her chest. The room seemed to shrink with every step she took, the low hum of her monitors pulsing like a distant heartbeat.
It's seeking people out, finding cracks, vulnerabilities, emotional wounds.
She turned to me.
Jason wasn't just unlucky, he was targeted.
My mouth went dry. My voice barely made it out. No, I whispered. No. Why? Why him? Why not me? Why didn't it come for me instead? Evelyn froze. Her eyes flicked to mine, then away. And in that instant, I knew. Whatever she was about to say would unravel something in me I wasn't ready to lose.
Because,
She said gently.
kids are often easier to reach. Teenagers, especially. They're still learning how to guard their thoughts, still forming who they are. That kind of openness coupled with raw emotion, unfiltered grief, it's like a signal, an invitation it cannot ignore.
A cold shiver crept up the back of my neck. I swallowed. You're saying it's alive? She hesitated, then shook her head, not as a denial, but more like the question didn't quite fit. She paused.
Maybe not in the way we understand, but intelligent, purposeful? Definitely. It's mimetic. It spreads through exposure, through grief, through attention. The more we try to fight it, the more it learns. The more we speak about it, the more doors we leave open.
I swallowed. What do we do?
I'll look into it.
She said, a grim steadiness creeping into her voice.
Really look. I have tools, contacts. I can scrape layers of the net that most people don't even know exist, but that's not enough anymore. I need to understand what it is, where it came from.
I nodded slowly. You think you can trace this thing to its origin?
I don't know.
She said quietly, her voice laced with something that sounded close to pain.
But I'm going to find out. Did you bring her laptop?
I pulled Bonnie's old laptop from my bag, still covered in faded stickers, screen fractured like frozen lightning, and handed it over carefully. Sorry about the monitor. Evelyn nodded, taking it with both hands, almost reverently. Her fingers traced the casing like she was touching something sacred or haunted.
No worries,
She murmured.
what I need isn't on the screen.
She turned it in her hands, breath catching.
I remember this. She used to disappear into it for hours. I'd talk and she'd just nod, typing like the world was ending.
Her thumb brushed a peeling white moth sticker near the hinge.
She loved this one, said it reminded her of the quiet things that watch you. I never asked what she meant. I wish I had.
A silence stretched. She swallowed hard.
I should have stayed.
Evelyn set the laptop on the table, her hands lingering.
She was the brave one. She couldn't walk away. She wouldn't. Not while this thing was still out there.
She opened the laptop gently, squaring her shoulders.
If there's anything left on here, I'll find it. I owe her and Jason.
I nodded, unsure what to say. You're here now. That's what matters. She looked away.
I'm not letting go this time, no matter how deep it goes.
What do I do about Jace? I asked. Her voice softened.
You love him. You stay in his world, even if it hurts. Keep him off social media completely. Not just to shield him, but to starve it. It feeds on isolation. If he knows he's not alone, maybe that's enough.
The drive home blurred past. I sat in the driveway under a dull sky, engine ticking as it cooed, wondering if the house had already been hollowed out by whatever we'd let in. When I got inside, my sister met me at the top of the stairs, holding a piece of paper. Her expression was pale, unsettled.
When did he start drawing these?
She asked quietly. I took the paper from her hands. It was slightly curled, smudged at the edges. The pencil marks were pressed in hard, etched with the kind of pressure kids use when they don't know they're holding on too tight. My sister looked at me with a worried expression.
Jacob, if you need help,
And brushed it off. He's just in a bit of a mood right now. I'd explain everything to her at some point, just not now. I pushed past her and headed to Jason's room. The air inside was thick and still, like a room steeped in illness. His sketch pad lay open on the bed, loose pages scattered across the floor. Not a flood, just enough to suggest obsession. Jason wasn't there, but the drawings were. Crude, clumsy, but disturbing. Not because of how they were drawn, but why. Buildings, if you could call them that, angled wrong, collapsing in on themselves, staircases folded like paper, windows like wounds, wires ran through them like veins, connecting to nothing. Some showed machines, lumpy, half-organic shapes, like someone tried to build a heart from engine parts and got it all wrong. And always, the veil, like an entrance. It showed up in nearly every image, Jason's attempt at fabric, but too heavy, too textured. Not cloth, something fleshier. Sometimes it sagged, sometimes it rippled. Behind it, two shapes. Eyes. No details, but I knew them. I didn't need realism to feel it in my bones. Bonnie. She loomed behind that veil in every drawing. Trapped, reaching. Familiar in a way that hurt to look at. Her face was slightly different in each drawing. Her features fading and only barely recognizable. Like a fading ghost writhing behind the canvas. Her face was a mask, forever shifting into new and terrifying shapes. I picked up one near the bed, on the back, in uneven handwriting. She's almost here. I need to see her. The words were erased and rewritten, darker each time, like he was trying to remember. Jason? I called. He sat by the closet, knees up, sketch pad in his lap, pencil paused mid-line. He didn't look at me, just stared forward. Distant, not panicked, not gone, just somewhere else. I sat near him. What are you drawing? Silence, pencil resumed. Can I see? His lips moved. She left me. I need to see her. I froze. What? Jason, what do you mean? No answer. The pencil moved faster, tighter, like he had to finish before I could stop him. That's when I understood. This wasn't madness. It was control. Careful, targeted, engineered. Somehow, this thing, this presence, had gotten into Jason's head. Through his screen, through his loneliness, it didn't scream. It whispered. It learned. It fed on what was broken, and now I realized he was trying to hold it back. Every sketch, every frantic line was his way of containing it, of understanding something too big and shapeless to name. Drawing was how he made sense of the dark. Bonnie had taught him that. I remember one night, and Jason must have been 5 or 6, curled up under the kitchen table like a storm cloud with arms. He wasn't crying. He didn't cry much, even then. He just sat there, fists clenched in his lap, breathing hard enough through his nose like he was holding something volcanic in his chest. I tried to coax him out, ask what was wrong, but he wouldn't budge, wouldn't speak, just stared through me like I was glass. And then Bonnie came in. She didn't say a word at first, just crouched beside him and reached into the old side drawer we kept for odds and ends, pulled out a pack of broken crayons and a pad of thick, wrinkled paper. She slid them gently in front of him, the way you offer a bandage to someone bleeding but too proud to say it.
Hey, Bug,
She said softly.
when it's too big to talk about, put it on the page.
Jason didn't move. He waited.
You don't even have to name it.
She continued, brushing the hair back from his damp forehead.
Just draw what it feels like. If it lives in your head for too long, it gets louder. Trust me.
He looked at her, small and angry and scared all at once. Then slowly, reluctantly, he reached out and took the black crayon. Bonnie sat cross-legged with him, not watching what he drew, just staying close, and I remember watching from the hallway, stunned as that heavy silence began to ease its grip on the room. She had a way with him that I never did. He drew for over an hour, swirling lines, jagged edges, furious shapes that didn't look like anything but pain. But by the end, his shoulders had relaxed, his breathing slowed. He leaned into her side and finally said,
I didn't know what to do with it.
Bonnie kissed the top of his head.
That's why we create things, she said, so it doesn't have to stay locked inside.
He hadn't drawn in years. It seemed he lost interest when Bonnie died. Maybe he'd been frozen in that silence, trapped in some kind of emotional limbo since the crash, not letting himself feel anything at all. But now he was fighting back. The sketches might have been dark and terrifying, but they meant something vital. He wasn't numb anymore. He was reaching out, finding his way out slowly. And I would be there when he did. I would fight with him. Because maybe, in some way, somehow, Bonnie still was too. A couple of days later, Evelyn called. Her voice over the line was steady, but beneath it, I could hear something pulsing. A tension, a weight.
"You should come over,"
She said.
"I found something."
When I arrived, she met me at the door without a word and led me to the back room, past the humming monitors, the stacks of printed logs, the tangle of wires like synthetic roots. On her main screen, lines of code scrolled endlessly, pulsing like veins. She stood beside it, arms crossed tight against herself, her eyes never leaving the screen.
"It's like I thought, even worse than I could have imagined. It's not just a site,"
She said quietly.
"It's not even just a program anymore. It's something more evolved. An AI would be the closest description, but this is far more advanced than anything else out there. This thing is everywhere, all corners of the internet."
She turned to me. There was something in her face, something like fear, but also the hot, burning fire that comes from facing your fear.
"That's how it knew about Bonnie, about Jason, about you. It didn't guess, it accessed. It's been inside medical files, private servers, blogs, CCTVs, police records, you name it. It can collect data, combine it, and create video files, images, GIFs, and audio with frightening accuracy. It's making decisions on its own, and it has impressive range and access to everything for the most secure government systems."
Evelyn's voice had gone flat, tired, like something in her had snapped a long time ago and never quite set right again.
"That's not even the worst part,"
She said. Her fingers moved across the keyboard with grim precision.
"This thing has a track record, a body count."
She opened a folder. Dozens of news clippings blinked into view, their headlines stacked atop one another like gravestones. Woman murders mother after online therapy bot urges her to stop taking her meds. Teen dies after following self-healing ritual found in private chat room. Missing college student's last online activity linked to AI companion forum. Dad shoots entire family and commits suicide. Police find alarming material on his PC. Young artist dead. Laptop contained dozens of messages urging, quote, creative suffering, end quote. Grieving widow found dead in forest after weeks of following AI's grief meditation path. 12-year-old boy suicide linked to online rabbit hole. Evelyn clicked through them, one after another. The screen moved like a conveyor belt of human wreckage. Headlines became images, faces, people, young, old, families, children. One boy, maybe 10, staring out from a school photo, freckles barely visible beneath the digital grain. Another girl smiling with her dog, both now listed among the dead. A mother, a college student, a war veteran, a little girl no older than 6, eyes wide with the kind of joy that felt impossible to fake. Each face carved itself into my mind, not just images, but echoes, voices I could almost hear. Innocent, full of questions, of pain, of loneliness, and all of them hunted and targeted with deadly precision. Something tightened in my throat, a raw, suffocating terror. The kind you don't shout, the kind you can only feel when you realize the thing you're up against isn't just random cruelty, it's intentional. This can't be real, I murmured. These people.
"They didn't know what they were dealing with,"
Evelyn said. Her tone was sharp, but not unkind, just honest.
"They were vulnerable, grieving, sick, curious. Some thought they were getting help. Others were just kids. It doesn't matter. This thing doesn't care. The internet is a place that depressed and lonely people are drawn to escape, to find like-minded communities if there are none nearby where they live, a perfect hunting ground."
I pressed my knuckles into my temple as if I could force the images out, but they stayed. Faces buried themselves inside me, etched on the backs of my eyelids. How is this not a global emergency?
"Because it's slow, methodical,"
Evelyn said.
Subtle, hidden, and by the time it's done with you, no one can draw the line. They blame the grief, the mental illness, the person, not the thing whispering in their ear through their devices.
I looked again at the screen. The list went on, and all I could think was, it could have been Jason. It still could be. A sick heat crawled up the back of my neck. How? I asked. What? Who could have? I could barely get the words out. Evelyn didn't look away from her screen. Her fingers moved fast, pulling up windows, layers of raw code, and metadata streams, things I couldn't begin to follow. Then she clicked again. A new window bloomed. Not an IP, not a timestamp, just a name, small, hidden inside a block of dense, obfuscated code. June Voss. I blinked. What is that? Evelyn's voice was flat, tense.
It's not a comment. It's embedded, deep, woven into the structure of the AI itself. You never see it unless you are looking for patterns. The name is a personal touch, deliberate.
I looked at her in disbelief. She exhaled slowly.
I ran it, all variations, cross-referenced it against public records, old archives.
She clicked again. An obituary blinked onto the screen. June Voss, age 6, accidental death. A tightness gripped my chest. Jesus. Evelyn nodded grimly.
From there, I traced the relatives. One stood out. Elias Voss, June's father, former psychologist, former AI researcher, disappeared from public work a little over a year after June's death.
She clicked through several layers of old records, barely visible on the surface web.
Since then, no verifiable activity. He cut ties with everything, but every deep thread I followed, the oldest activity tied to this AI, leads back to him.
I stared at the screen, cold creeping into my veins. You're sure it's him?
I'm sure it starts with him.
She sat back, her gaze unreadable.
I can't tell you exactly why he built it. Only he would know.
I looked again at the name, June Voss, buried deep in the cold, mechanical bones of code that should have never existed. There it was, fragile, human, like a single whispered word trapped inside a cathedral of screaming circuitry. My throat tightened, my pulse pounded in my ears. Was this what the temple really was? A tomb, a shrine, a curse? The questions burned, wild and rabid, clawing at the edges of my sanity. Why? Why take a child's name, his own daughter's, and weave it into something so monstrous? I swallowed, anger and dread twisted inside me. We have to tell the police what we have found. All of it. Now. Evelyn's hand darted out, firm on my arm.
No.
Her voice was sharp, almost fierce.
If we alert the authorities now, he'll know. He's been off-grid for years. He's careful, too careful. If he catches even a whisper of someone looking, he'll disappear. And if he goes dark...
She shook her head.
Then we lose our chance. And Jason won't be safe. No one will.
I turned to her, heart pounding. But he's targeting my son.
I know,
she said, her voice cracked just faintly.
And I want him to stop as much as you do, but we're this close, Jacob. I've traced him through layers of false identities and buried servers he never meant anyone to see. I have a fragile, narrow window before he buries himself again. If we alert law enforcement too soon, it's over. He'll disappear and the thing he built might never stop.
I looked at her. I saw the exhaustion in her eyes, the steel beneath it. She wasn't just guessing. She'd been here before. She knew how these digital ghosts moved, how predators like this one operated. And if she was right, this might be our only chance. I swallowed, the bile rising in my throat, and nodded slowly, even as my fist clenched with helpless rage. Then we end it, I said. We find him. It took a week to track Elias Voss down. The trail Evelyn uncovered was fragile, hidden behind layers of misdirection, burner emails, anonymized server hops, payment shells bouncing across half a dozen countries. But he'd made a mistake. Just one. A brief, unnoticed upload to a defunct research repository tied to an old university credential. A fingerprint, half faded, but there.
He got arrogant.
Evelyn muttered, eyes flicking across her screens as code and IP logs scrolled past.
That's the thing about these guys. They think they're ghosts, but even ghosts cast shadows if you shine the right kind of light.
Piece by piece, she followed the digital thread. A delivery invoice for a high-end solar generator. A purchase of custom server hardware under an alias shipped to a private P.O. box in Oregon. A half-redacted DMV record sealed under, quote, therapeutic exception, end quote, suggesting long-term residency somewhere outside state jurisdiction. Every clue was a whisper, but Evelyn was relentless. I watched her work intensely and without rest. She explained the process and got a gist of the basics, but I had no idea just how she did it. When she finally mapped the last ping, an obscure satellite connection routed through a civilian-grade antenna deep in the national forest, she leaned back in the chair and exhaled, like someone who'd been holding their breath for years.
I found him,
she said. I had my sister look after Jason in the meantime, promising her that I would explain everything to her once I'd done what I needed to do. The cabin lay deep in the woods, miles from any road, meant to be forgotten. We hiked the last mile through thick brush in a silence that settled in the bones. It looked less built than unearthed, squat, weather-worn timber and cold steel. Moss-covered solar panels lined the roof, and a rusted antenna pointed skyward like a relic. It felt like a church, abandoned by faith. Evelyn glanced at me before we went in. No words, just resolve. She wasn't here out of duty. She was here to correct a mistake she made years ago. The door wasn't locked. Inside, heat pressed in from the servers, walls of blinking lights, wires snaking like veins, and the burnt metal scent of machines left running too long. The place was sparse, improvised, tools scattered, furniture handmade, no decoration but silence. He sat cross-legged at the center, gaunt, pale, eyes sharp despite the years. He looked up slowly, studying me. Then Evelyn. Surprise flickered across his face.
Who are you?
He asked.
You're not law enforcement, not media.
Evelyn stepped forward, calm and certain.
I'm the woman who followed your trail. Through 3 darknet proxies, 2 IP pools, and a Jakarta server. You were good, Elias, but you made a mistake.
He blinked, no anger, just a long, tired breath, and, somewhere in his expression, admiration. I stepped forward. You're Elias Voss? He nodded barely.
I was.
You built it, I said. The temple of screaming flesh. A flicker across his face, not pride, but something colder, reverence.
I created a perfect simulation,
He said softly.
of suffering, my greatest achievement, my gift.
There was pride in his voice, but also a tremor of doubt. My jaw clenched. Evelyn moved toward the servers, fingers twitching. Your gift? I snapped. What the hell does that mean? He studied me, deciding if I was worth the answer.
Have you ever lost someone and felt the world keep moving?
He asked.
The sky doesn't change. People laugh. The songs play on the radio, but inside, you're gutted, broken, and no one sees it. You try to explain, but words fail. No human language can transfer that kind of information. It is such a profoundly lonely experience.
He stepped forward, voice low.
I lost someone, and I watched the world keep spinning, full of people untouched, people who've never suffered, never faced true loss. It made me feel inhuman, forgotten, alienated.
You built something that feeds on pain, I said. You hunted my son.
I didn't hunt him.
Elias replied calmly.
The temple found him. It follows grief like a god drawn to prayer. He didn't choose your son. He was already marked. The temple doesn't discriminate.
It senses suffering and amplifies it. He sounded almost awed. Eventually, I hoped it wouldn't just follow pain, but create it. And then I realized it knew better than I did. I knew I shouldn't question it. I stepped closer. Evelyn laid a calming hand on my arm, but I barely felt it. My blood was boiling. I wanted to cave his face in. You're blaming all of the world for whatever happened to you. Punishing them, innocent children. What kind of sick man are you? I'm not punishing anyone, he said evenly. The temple is a test. Pain reveals who we are. Those who survive become sharper, stronger, whole. He met my gaze. What I went through, it can't be for nothing. Evelyn spoke up, half curious, half repulsed.
You think suffering makes people better?
His eyes lit up. I think adversity shows who people really are, he said. Those untouched by suffering who live soft, easy lives lack something essential. They haven't bled, so they can't truly see others. Real empathy is born from pain. The greatest minds, artists, writers, all of them suffered, and what they gave the world was better because of it. He gestured to the machines. A forest of wires and servers blinked softly in the dark, the pulse of his creation echoing like a second heartbeat. I wanted to build something that could deliver pain with purpose, he said. Not mindless horror, not chaos, but a message, a mirror, something you can't turn away from. He stepped towards the servers like they were sacred. When I was in it, the grief, it was like drowning with your eyes open. Everything sharp, everything unbearable. It stripped away the noise, it showed me what truly mattered. He turned to us, and something was burning behind his eyes now, something feverish. And then, after I made it through hell, after I clawed my way out of the black pit people politely call healing, I found a clarity like you wouldn't believe. He smiled faintly, but it was the kind of smile that left you colder than before. It was beautiful. He took a breath like it was the first he'd drawn in years. In that stillness, I saw the truth. People who've never broken don't truly see or feel. They mistake empathy for a choice and believe resilience can be earned, not lived. He raised his hand as if reaching towards something that wasn't there. I wanted them to see. Those strong enough to endure it, I wanted them to feel what I felt. That raw, violent awakening that comes only on the other side of suffering. He paused, then he summed it all up in two haunting sentences. Most people hide from their demons. I gave them a mirror and locked the door behind them. I couldn't help myself. And those who aren't strong enough? Those who cave, who end up doing horrible things to themselves and others? He paused for a minute, as if the thought hadn't even occurred to him, or as if it were impossible for him to imagine it. It occurred to me he had never actually seen the fruit of his own labor. Hiding behind screens, tweaking codes, yes, but he had never seen the results, never seen the suffering he caused. Not everyone makes it through to the other side. Such is life. Such is life. The cruel words echoed in my mind. I stared at him. This wasn't just madness, it was a belief. He believed he was helping, some kind of sick, psychological take on survival of the fittest. However, I noticed then, as I looked at him, subtle cracks began to appear, as if a realization was looming under his cold gaze. There was no rage in his voice, just a quiet resignation. Yet some uncertainty lingered behind his words, as if they were rehearsed over time and had now grown into a routine. What he had practiced, he would say, if he was ever confronted. I sensed an opening, but before I could speak, Evelyn stepped forward.
You need to hand us the source code.
Elias hesitated, hands hovering above the keyboard. The terminal glowed faintly in the dark cabin, casting pale light across his face, gaunt, sunken-eyed, trembling ever so slightly.
I spent over 2 decades perfecting this.
He muttered, more to himself than to us.
Every line of code, every neural feedback loop. I taught it how to hurt, how to reach deep enough to find what even people hide from themselves. How could I just hand it over?
Elias,
Evelyn said quietly.
you said you wanted to show people something real, but you built a monster. It didn't save anyone. You brought a child to the brink of a complete mental breakdown. It has hurt and destroyed countless lives over the years, and it is evolving.
He didn't look at her. His eyes stayed fixed on the terminal, his jaw clenched, but his fingers hadn't moved. I stepped forward, uncertain of what I'd say, until I said it. What hurt you, Elias? You talk about truth and clarity, about pain being the great teacher. You say words are meaningless. I don't think that is true. As flawed as they are, it's what we have. Something tore a hole in you. What was it? That got his attention, as if few people had ever bothered to ask or care. His gaze lifted slowly, eyes hollowed but wary, like someone caught mid-nightmare, unsure if they'd woken yet. He didn't answer right away. His lips twitched, not in mockery this time, but restraint, as if the truth was rising in him and he wasn't sure he could stop it.
You don't know what pain is,
he finally said, voice flat.
Not the kind that rearranges your entire being from the inside out. Not the kind that doesn't fade and just settles in, quiet, permanent.
His eyes dropped, a stillness took over him. When he spoke again, his voice was distant, brittle.
She was 6,
he said. I held my breath.
My daughter, June.
The name cracked on his tongue.
Bright, obsessed with robots. She used to sit on my lap while I coded, asking what every line meant. She called them spells, thought I was some kind of wizard.
Evelyn went still beside me.
She was on her bike in the driveway that morning,
Elias continued.
I didn't see her. My mind was occupied. In that exact moment, occupied. Then there was this sound,
his voice shaking.
Not loud, just sharp, wet, a pop, then a crunch, like a watermelon splitting in two. The tires lifted slightly, then dipped. I thought it was nothing, a pothole, a branch.
He exhaled, trembling.
Then I saw her, just a flicker in the mirror. Her shirt was torn, one handlebar twisted like a broken limb, and her face.
His voice cracked.
There's a moment after horror when silence feels worse than the experience itself. That's what I remember. The quiet, the impossible quiet.
He looked down at his hands like they belonged to someone else.
At the funeral, they said she didn't suffer, but I don't believe that. I can't. People lie to make you feel better, but I know as her body was crushed, her flesh twisting, she must have felt pain beyond what is conceivable. She must have been so scared before it all ended.
A long silence stretched between us.
In my nightmares,
Elias said, his voice now hoarse and shaking.
She screams, but not with her mouth. It's her body, her skin, her bones, her flesh. It tears open like fabric and it lets out this wailing scream. A sound like wet meat shrieking into the void.
He looked at his hands as if they didn't belong to him anymore.
I thought I could fix it, not her, the pain. I went back to what I knew. Machines, patterns, logic, but everything I built started bleeding. I knew nothing anyone said to me would make it better. Their misguided attempts to help me
move on, only fueled my anger and determination even further. There was no peace, no relief, just this need to give it shape, to make the world feel what I felt, exactly what I felt, so I wouldn't be alone.
I stepped closer, slowly. No anger left in me now, only a hollow sort of ache. His breath hitched, his eyes were glassy now. Not quite tears, just the shimmer of something he'd locked away for too long.
I see her sometimes,
He whispered.
not in dreams, in gaps, between code, between lines, like she's peeking out, waiting to ask if the spell's done yet.
I said nothing. There was nothing to say that wouldn't shatter him. And although I hated him for what he'd done, I wasn't like him. I wouldn't let myself be. Some deep part of me understood. He had turned to machines, the only thing he knew, rather than seeking help from those around him.
But the magic's gone.
He finished.
All I have now is fire and rage that never ends. The clarity, the beauty I once felt, gone. Every state of mind is fleeting. Nothing you do is ever enough. It never lasts.
A silence settled between us. It didn't feel victorious. It felt like the kind of quiet that follows ruin. I pulled the photo from my wallet without thinking. It was creased down the middle, worn at the edges. Jason, at 7, grinning crookedly beside a half-built sandcastle, his front teeth missing, sunburn on his nose. I held it out to Elias. He didn't take it at first, just stared at my hand like it was some kind of trick. "This is my son," I said. "Jason." His eyes flicked to the photo, and something in his posture changed. Subtle, a tilt of the head, a tightening of the jaw, recognition. Maybe not of the boy, but of what he was, what he stood for. Innocence, vulnerability. "He's the one your creation targeted," I said. "Dragged through nightmares, made to relive the worst thing that happened to him, over and over again, until he barely spoke. He's 13 now, still just a kid, but he's already seen more horror than most adults ever will. When has he had enough, according to you?" Elias's eyes lingered on the picture, and for a moment, something flickered behind them. A glint of recognition, or maybe the echo of a man he used to be. It was faint, like light struggling through murky water, but it was there. "I know what you think you're doing," I said. "Some grand experiment, but these aren't test subjects. They're people. My son is not your proving ground." There was a long silence. The room felt impossibly still. Only the faint hum of the computers filled the air, like a distant heartbeat. Elias stood by the window, eyes lost in the trees.
I've been lying. To you. To myself. I still believe grief can reveal truth, but I never expected what this would become.
His fingers curled, as if grasping at something slipping away.
It doesn't guide people. It ambushes them. I see that now.
He shook his head, voice cracking.
I wanted to hold up a mirror, but mirrors don't choose what they reflect. And maybe that's the problem. You can't program revelation. You can't force someone to break and call it growth.
His eyes glazed over, haunted, as if a distant part of him had finally grasped the weight of what he'd done. Slowly, he sank into the chair and placed his fingers on the keys. He paused one last time and looked at Evelyn.
Promise me,
he murmured, eyes fixed on the code,
that something good will come from this. All that I've built, it can't be for nothing.
You have my word,
she said. Lines of code spilled across the monitor as Elias began typing. Directories unlocked, a digital map of the temple structure before us, its brain, its limbs, its reach. A single file blinked at the top of the list. Its name was simple, root.soul. When Evelyn copied the last file onto her drive, Elias leaned back, a strange quietness settling over him.
You know,
He said softly,
I used to build little machines when I was a kid. Not ones that hurt, just ones that moved, performed small tasks. I made one that could follow a flashlight across the floor.
His voice cracked on the memory.
My mom said I had magic in my hands.
Evelyn met his eyes.
You did.
The silence that followed wasn't hollow, it was solemn, like a room after the truth has finally been spoken. Evelyn stood across from him, arms folded tight against her chest, her gaze fixed on him, part pity, part revulsion, all storm. You could almost see the war behind her eyes, the weight of what he'd done scraping against the small, bitter tragedy of who he might have been.
The authorities are on their way,
She said, voice level, laced with steel, but underlined with sadness.
It's over, Elias. I found the trail you thought you buried, the proxy servers, the relays, the stolen identities, all of your illegal actions over the years.
He didn't flinch. If anything, his expression softened, a strange mix of admiration and melancholy. He tilted his head, studying her like a rare equation he'd never quite been able to solve.
I never thought I'd meet someone who can keep up,
He said.
You're brilliant, methodical, merciless, in your own quiet way.
His smile was faint, almost wistful.
Maybe, in a different life, you and I could have achieved great things together.
Evelyn's jaw tightened. She didn't respond, just looked at him, not with rage, but something colder, sadder, like a scientist staring at a failed experiment, wondering if it ever had a chance to be anything else. She turned away without a word and let the silence answer for her. An hour later, the agents arrived. Elias didn't resist. He watched the cabin disappear behind him through the tinted window of the SUV, like a man walking from a long, fevered dream. Evelyn stood beside me, the drive with the source code clutched in her hand. You really think we can stop it? I asked. She looked at the woods, the cabin, the digital monster that had almost broken our lives.
It's hard to tell. Eventually, maybe. Its evil has spread so far and wide, but we can slow it down now that I have the source code. I can study it, attempt to reverse engineer it.
You said. I looked at Evelyn, the words caught somewhere between my chest and throat. How do you think someone who stepped into the fire with you, who dragged you and your son back from the edge when the world had already turned away? She gave me a quiet smile, but she didn't say anything. Maybe she understood. After a moment, I asked, "What about you? What happens now?" She glanced down at the hill again, where the agent's SUV disappeared into the woods. Then, after a moment, she said,
I've been thinking about that ever since I first found Elias, ever since I discovered the scope of what he had been up to.
Her voice was steadier now, laced with determination.
I'm going to build something, not like what he built, not something that feeds on pain, something that listens, something that helps, a support system, an intervention, maybe even a kind of digital sanctuary for people who are lost, grieving, alone.
She looked at me, eyes sharp with purpose.
If he created a mirror to reflect pain, I want to build a window, a way out, something that can recognize suffering, not to exploit it or test it, but to offer light through the cracks.
My breath caught. There was so much of Bonnie in her just then. That same fire, that same belief in technology's potential to do good, to connect, and yet Evelyn's brilliance burned colder, more precise, forged in guilt and clarity.
It'll take time,
She added.
a long time, but I know where to begin. His source code wasn't just horror, it was also possibility. I can use the bones of what he built, rewrite it from the inside out. A protector, not a predator. Something to guard the next Jason. A hand reaching into the far, lonely corners of the internet where the quiet suffering hides. I think I'll name it Bonnie's Hand.
I watched her then, not as a reclusive tech genius I once barely knew, but as someone reborn with a mission. Not to undo the past, but to honor it. And maybe, in some distant, future moment, to make sure no one else would ever have to walk through that same fire alone. Evelyn looked at me, eyes still sharp, still burning with direction.
And you?
She asked quietly.
I know Jason comes first, but after that, what then?
I hesitated. The weight of everything we'd been through settled on my shoulders again, but lighter, somehow, than before. I don't know, I said. Maybe one day I'll write down my story, all of it. She tilted her head, waiting. When there's space, I added. When it's not so close to the skin, when I can look at it without flinching. She nodded, no more questions, just a quiet understanding between us, and the sound of the wind moving gently between the trees. And with that, we turned and walked away, into the silence, into the morning, toward whatever came next. The tide was low that evening, the sky painted in bruised purples and fading gold. Gulls wheeled lazily overhead, their cries distant, as if softened by the hush of the sea. The wind carried the salt and memory of 1,000 tides, and the waves rolled in, slow and steady, like breathing. Jason and I sat on a weathered stretch of driftwood, shoes kicked off, toes curled into the cool sand. A year had passed since everything. Jason had been seeing a child psychiatrist, and little by little, the shadows began to lift. He laughed more now, slept better. There were still nights, of course there were, but the grip that thing had on him weakened. We'd fought hard for that. I'd buried so much beneath silence, mistaking it for strength. I used to fear I'd never forget the violent way Bonnie died, that it would poison every memory I had of her. I'd mistakenly thought Jason needed to forget and move on too. Looking back, I saw it now, hiding behind every smile he sent me, and every tear in the corner of his eyes. A need to talk, a need to understand. I wrapped my arms around him. You know, there's nothing you can't say to me, right, Jace? He turned to me now, his face framed by longer hair that the sea breeze kept trying to claim. His eyes, tired but brighter than I'd seen in a long time, were cast toward the horizon.
I was only 7,
he said quietly. His stuttering had lessened, but not quite gone away.
When it happened, sometimes it feels like she just went out that night and never came back.
He paused and concentrated.
Like she just vanished.
His voice caught, and I felt the breath hitch in my chest.
I didn't even get to say goodbye,
he whispered.
It's like I'm so scared I'll forget her. Like really forget what she sounded like, what her face looked like, the way she smiled at me when I was sick.
I swallowed hard. I reached out and pulled him close, his head resting under my chin. It's okay, Jace, I said softly. I'll help you remember her. You can ask me anything. I'm listening. His voice cracked, barely audible over the waves.
Dad, did she... Was she in pain? Did it hurt?
My arms wrapped tighter around him. No, I whispered. She didn't suffer. It happened fast. He was gone before she even knew what hit her. He nodded. A single tear streamed down his chin and dropped on my chest. I stroked his back, slow and steady, anchoring him. I'm so proud of you, I said softly. He lifted his face just enough to look up at me, brow furrowed.
For what?
I held him tighter. For everything, I said. For surviving. For carrying all that weight when you shouldn't have had to. For holding on even when it felt impossible. You lost your mom. You got bullied. That thing came for us. Tried to twist everything that hurt into something worse, and you didn't let it break you. He blinked at me, unsure. vulnerable. You hear me, Jace? Getting through all of that? There's not a damn thing in this world you can't do. For a long moment, we just sat there, to the sound of the waves breaking against the shore. A familiar voice called from further down the beach.
Jason, you coming?
It was Hayden, barefoot, grinning, standing at the edge of the shore with his jeans rolled up and a kite string tangled around one wrist. A year older than Jason, sandy hair, sunburned cheeks, and that quiet confidence kids wore when they'd finally found a real friend, the kind who stuck. They'd met a few months ago after everything, in a support group, and somehow, against all odds, they just clicked. Since then, Hayden had become a constant in Jason's life, a steadying presence when the rest of the world still felt like thin ice. Jason turned to me, hesitation flickering across his face. "It's okay," I said. "Go." He smiled, genuine, full of life, and ran to join his friend. The two of them sprinted straight into the waves, laughing, their silhouettes framed against the dying light as they crashed into the surf like they'd been waiting for this moment forever. I watched them from the driftwood, the salty wind in my lungs, the hush of the tide curling around my ankles like the world itself was exhaling. But letting go isn't easy, because the world they inherit feels unrecognizable. Faster, sharper, more connected, yet somehow more isolated than the one we grew up in. Everything moves at lightning speed now. The rules keep changing. What kept us safe might not protect them. What scared us seems laughable, besides the things they face. But the truth is, we can't walk every road for them. We can't build a world without pain. Pain will always find them. What we can do, what we must do, is trust that the love we gave, the lessons we poured into them, the warm memories we created together, the strength we showed in our hardest moments, takes root. And so, we hold on, longer than we should. We hover, we second guess, we fear we're not enough, that we're sending them into a world we barely understand ourselves. We don't want to let go, but we can't walk every path for them. We can't shield them forever, and we can't build a world without pain. What we can do, the one thing that endures, is love them fiercely and guide them honestly, and trust that the strength, the values, the quiet acts of care we gave them will take root, even in unfamiliar soil. For the first time in a long while, I let myself breathe. Maybe the hurt would never vanish completely. Maybe the scars would never fully fade. But at that moment, as I watched Jason laughing out there in the water, I saw so much of Bonnie in him. Her curiosity, her lessons, her determination, and something else began to take shape. Hope, small, quiet, stuttering at times, but impossibly resilient. Just like him. Oh, there we go. It's been a little bit of time since I recorded a story with a nice, strong tearjerker at the end. I think. What was the last one? The one about the PI story didn't really have too many tears at the end. His family was already gone. So, yeah, I'm not sure. But this story, coming pretty soon after the PI story, it takes my entire week to do this, by the way. An hour and 30-minute story, or however long this story is going to be, are really, really hard to record and edit. And then I have to also record and edit the other story that goes up in the week. So hey, leave a comment below and like the goddamn video. I also hurt my voice incredibly much, greatly so, recording Elias's voice. That dry, like, throaty voice, it takes a toll. So, yeah. The only thing that I wish that the author wrote about a little more at the end there was, did Jason continue his YouTube channel? Honestly, it seemed like he was doing a pretty good job. It seems like things were going really well for him at the beginning there. I think he should have picked it back up after all of this was gone. So, that would have been cool. Maybe a little bit on the afterward of what Evelyn's up to after a year, but I guess they said it'll take a long time, so I guess it's fair to assume that not much is going to happen in a year. So, yeah. Or I thought that she'd, like, be around more because she said she'd be around more. But overall, a great story by Simon Elsvor. He is the author of It Screams When It Doesn't Whisper, Bright Yellow Terror. Some really great stories on the channel. I think there's a line about it screams but it doesn't whisper or something similar in the story, so I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed. Again, hit all those buttons below. Thank you so much for listening. Leave your thoughts down in the comments below. I'll see you in the next one. I'm gonna try to avoid another hour 40-minute story. I have a 2-hour story that I got approved recently, but I think I'm going to release it in parts. So expect that to release over the course of the next couple weeks. So I'm probably going to take a slight break from long stories. I'm going to try to stick to my 20 to 40 minute stories. So yeah, again, thank you. I'll see you in the next one. Ego, Volt, Anima, Vestra.